I know that I can feel it when I'm got a focused period of time to work on a particular project. I sort of lose a sense of time, I lose a sense of anything going on around me, and I'm wholly focused on that one project that I'm working in, and I'm far more productive. Welcome to the Independent School Podcast. Thinking and acting strategically is the key to both securing the future of your school and helping to build a more equal and just world. My name's Juliette Corbett. I'm a consultant, speaker and facilitator, specialising in helping independent schools. In this podcast, I translate tried and tested strategy and fundraising techniques into a language that works for schools. So if you're a senior leader in a private school and you want your daily work to feel less exhausting and more strategic, and if you want once more to feel the joy of making the world a better place through education, then you're in the right place. Welcome, and let's get started on this week's episode. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode where we're talking about how you can take control of your time. There are thousands of blogs about time management out there. There's books, there's podcasts. It's a whole industry talking about time management. The reality is different things work for different people. The key concept here is that you are in control of your time. It might not feel like it at all times of the day or the working week, but you have to remember that you are in control of your time. Now, this is the second of a 3-part series around personal effectiveness, and we're getting much more tactical about things that you can do in your working day which are going to help you to carve out time for strategy. In the last episode, I was talking about how your inbox is not your job. Talking about email habits, but also we looked at 2 big picture themes around why it's so difficult to control email, but why it's so important that you are in control of the amount of time you're spending on email. And those 2 themes were firstly the difference between reactive and proactive work, and the fact that proactive work is critically important, and yet reactive work tends to absorb a lot of your time. And then the second theme was the difference between multitasking and focused work. The idea here being that focused work is far more productive, and yet multitasking is sort of seen as a badge of honour, if you like, in our working day. Once we understand that actually focused work is really far more productive than multitasking, and that you have to carve out time for focused work proactively around those strategic projects that you want to be focusing on, or potentially even that first phase of the strategic thinking that needs to go into identifying what those strategic projects should be, you need to be in control of your time. If you're going to achieve that, you need to be able to control your email and how much time email is taking. Listen to last week's episode if you want more on that. But it's absolutely critically important that you are in control of your time. So this week we're going to be talking about one recommendation within those thousands of blogs and podcasts and books around time management. It's the one that I found most useful. Everybody is different, but I think it's at least something that everybody should try, and that is the concept of diary blocking. I just want to pause for a moment to say thank you to you. The Independent School Podcast has now passed its 2nd birthday, published more than 100 episodes, and has had over 6,000 listens. As the founder and host of this podcast, I've been really humbled by the number of people who have told me that it's really helped them. From school heads who've rushed up to me at conferences and told me how it's been a real guide for them through tricky times, through to experienced directors of development who have said it reassures them that they're on the right track. So thank you for listening and for all your kind comments along the way. If this podcast is helping you, then I invite you to join the 300 people who have asked to get my weekly emails. That way you'll hear about each episode as it's published, as well as the special offers that I only tell people about when they're on my mailing list. So to get my weekly emails, you can go to www.consultjuliette.co.uk/sign up. Okay, so let's think about diary blocking. Now, some people call this time blocking. So if you want to do a quick Google search and learn a bit more about it, you might find more articles around time blocking. I use the term diary blocking because that is basically what it is. It is blocking out time in your diary to make sure that things happen that are critically important for your success in your job. So most people use their calendar, their diary, for logging when they're going to be having meetings. So depending on your role, you might be in control of setting those meetings, or someone else is putting those meetings into your diary for you. Once you've got those meetings in, then everything else that you need to achieve in the week has to fit around those meetings. And we tend to have our diary or a calendar, have those meetings set, and then any empty space is where you're trying to fit in work for that strategic thinking, strategic projects. What that means is that it's very, very fragmented. You don't really get a chance to get a focused period of time in the week to really make progress on those strategic projects. Now, those strategic projects will vary depending on your role in the school and depending on what your strategy is as a school. But it might include things as big picture as carving out a strategy for a new income stream around commercial lettings. Or it might be something to do with the way that you're shifting and changing attitudes in your school. So for a head, for example, a strategic project could actually include carving out time to stand on the touchline at least once a week, to be there, on a weekend, Saturday morning, cheering on your team so that you're able to network with parents, you're able to talk to the pupils, you are getting much more integrated into something specific within the working week of the school, which then shifts attitudes and cultures. So when I say strategic project, it doesn't need to be you sitting at your desk working, but it is something specific that you have decided to focus time on, that you want to invest your time in. Now, when it's left to just happen around meetings, it's very fragmented. There are constant distractions and you don't get a sense of flow. Flow is an interesting concept. It's about finding a rhythm for the work that you're in. And if you just kind of Google flow, you'll find lots of different articles around the kind of hot topic at the moment about how we work. I'm not actually convinced about how much empirical evidence underpins it. Maybe I need to do a bit more research in that, but certainly I know that I can feel it when I'm got a focused period of time to work on a particular project. I sort of lose a sense of time, I lose a sense of anything going on around me, and I'm wholly focused on that one project that I'm working in, and I'm far more productive. So I know for me it works. Again, like everything else, including time management, you need to find out what works for you, but this is something that you should explore, the idea of flow. Now, if we're using our calendar, our diary, to fit in strategically important projects around everything else that gets put into our calendar, it's very likely that you are not achieving the high quality work that you could on those strategic projects. It's highly likely it leads to frustration. It leads to a feeling on a Friday as you're going home, I didn't get the things done that I needed to do this week. I just felt frustrated that I did everyone else's priorities. I didn't focus on the things that are really going to push forward my agenda, my work that I'm trying to focus on. You need to take control. You need to take control of your diary. What this means is, and it's a very basic concept, what would happen if you were to frequently book meetings in your diary with yourself to work on strategically important projects? And initially, think of them as meetings that you're booking with yourself, because that's the concept that you kind of used to manage your diary, your calendar in the past. Value yourself. Value the fact that you need to create the environment in which you can do your best work. And if these are strategic projects, these are the types of things that you will be judged on, to put it frankly. These are the types of things that people expect you to do really well at. So you need to create the environment with no distractions, an opportunity to really focus in and not multitask on that proactive work that you have identified you need to be doing. So there are different ways of doing this. Different things work for different people, but one of the key things that you need to explore is the length of time that optimally works for you. If you're going to block out these meetings, how long should those meetings be? Now, yes, you could say I've only got half an hour in my diary. Half an hour is better than nothing, but generally speaking, we're talking about longer blocks of time than just that. Now, I'm going to put a link in the episode notes to something called the Pomodoro technique. And if you just Google it, it's everywhere. Pomodoro, the Italian for tomato, slightly random name for it. It's a time management technique. The idea behind it is that you spend 25 minutes fully immersed in one task. Then you take a 3 to 5 minute break. And then you repeat the 25-minute block of work. You do that 3 times. And then you do a longer break. Now, there's quite a short period of time, 25 minutes to focus. Personally, when I tried this, it drove me mad because at 20 minutes-ish, I was just about in my flow period, and then my alarm went and I needed to take a 3 to 5 minute break, and it really didn't work for me. But for some people, it works really, really well. So it's something to try. What I do is a much longer block. I set my alarm for a 90-minute block, and I work completely focused, so no email notifications. My email is off entirely. My phone is out of reach. There are no distractions. No, I don't have any calls or meetings interrupting that 90-minute block. And I will focus on the one project that I need to get done on this day. Now, I find 90 minutes works really well. I do set a timer because at the end of that 90 minutes, assuming I don't have other meetings to go to, very frequently, my temptation is to keep working longer than the 90 minutes. I've been known to miss lunch, not have a tea break, and basically sit at my computer for hours on end. But what I have learned is that at 90 minutes, I have to take a break. It might only be a 10-15 minute break if I'm really into something, or it might be a little bit longer, but I have to take a break because otherwise my productivity definitely dips. And I don't notice it at the time, but I do notice it when I'm reviewing the work that I've been doing afterwards. So for me, 90 minutes is my optimum length. I set a timer and I force myself to take a break at the end of that 90 minutes, even if I'm going to return back to the same task after that break. It's not always easy. I've been doing this for a number of years and it's incredibly effective. I know that it works. It doesn't mean it's easy. There are days when I sit down and I've got my 90-minute block in the diary. I know the tasks that I need to be working on. And I just can't get into it. I can't get the flow. I'm continually thinking, well, maybe I should just check my email or I'll just reach for my phone. And I'm really struggling to focus. And there are a couple of techniques that I've learnt that work for me. It might not work for you, but it's worth trying. The first is a short 10-minute meditation. I'm not a massive meditation person, but I have meditated in the past. I'm actually on a bit of a streak at the moment. I've just started a bit of a New Year's resolution 2023. I'm doing okay with it. Most days I do a little bit of meditation. If it's something that you've tried in the past, try it at the beginning of a time block and see whether that works for you. Now, I use an app called Calm. I'll put a link in the episode notes, but there are hundreds of YouTube videos out there, just a 10-minute meditation. I was actually amazed, even before I'd started meditating more regularly, this was the time that I meditated at the beginning of a session I was struggling with, and it had an impact even if I hadn't been practicing meditation previous to this. So give it a try. The other thing that works for me, and this is slightly more random, I don't hear many people talking about this, but it works for me, is a white noise app while I'm trying to focus. Now, my Calm app actually happens to also have background noise tracks, so I use my Calm app, but again, loads of stuff on free on YouTube if you want to use that. For me personally, I love a crackling fire. And actually at any time of year, even if it's the middle of summer, a crackling fire for me is the white noise that helps me to focus. For some people, it's things like waves, bird noise, whatever it might be, or even the hustle and bustle of a coffee shop kind of white noise in the background. Whatever it might be, give it a try, either in your headphones if you're in a noisy environment, or out loud from your phone. Obviously keep your phone out of reach, but within hearing distance so you can hear the white noise. Something you can try if you're really struggling to focus in. It's worked for me. I'd love to hear other things, other little tips, techniques that you might have found work for you. And I think sometimes, I haven't done this myself, but I've heard other people talk about taking a walk, just a 20-minute walk, 20-minute walk just before their block of time, and that really helps them. So that might be something you could try as well. So the first thing to do, the first takeaway I want you to take away from this week's episode is you are in control of your diary. You can use your diary to help you get focused time on proactive work. The second thing that I encourage you to explore is what length of time works for you. Experiment with it over a couple of weeks, different lengths of time, different times of day, different times of the week. Each of us has our own kind of biorhythm as to when we focus most easily. So try out different times of day, try out different times of length of time to see what works for you. So once you've tried out a few different things over a couple of weeks, then you want to find a system. You want to find a way of making this repeatable and to make it into a habit going forwards. So there are a couple of different ways of doing this. I'm sure there are hundreds of ways of doing this, but two come to mind. I've tried both. The one that really works for me is if you identify what your strategically important projects are, and those might be really big meaty things, really kind of substantial things with lots of different elements to them. It might be a task that's coming up that's just a standalone one thing that you need to do, but it's really critically important that you are focused, you've got your mind in its best kind of flow state, and you're able to really do your best work. Identify a couple of things that are coming up. Look ahead in your diary and block out chunks of time to work on that specific thing. And you put it in your diary with the project that you're going to be working on as the name of the meeting that you're going to be putting into your diary. And then actually do it. Now that seems flippant, but this is where people fall down. Blocking it into your diary is one thing. When the time comes around, you have to hold yourself accountable. Maybe tell someone else this is what you're doing so you can be accountable to them. You build the habit that when something pops up in your diary, you actually focus on the thing that you've told yourself to do. Now, some people find this easier than others. I heard one person one time say, I think it was on a podcast I was listening to, that they really struggle with this because they don't keep promises to themselves, which I think is a really interesting idea. You've promised your future self you're going to focus on this one project because it's the right thing to focus on. Please keep that promise to yourself and actually focus in on that project when your diary tells you to do it. But some people find that a little bit more easy than others. Now, this is what I do, which means that the specific blocks of 90 minutes in my diary are sort of all over the week. I don't have a regular time, but they are specifically there because I have to work on a particular piece of client work. So a report, let's say, that I'm writing for a client, for a school I've done an away day for, I'm doing their report afterwards. I'll have 90-minute blocks on the next working day, which allows me to really focus in on getting that report to the highest quality that I can. The alternative way of doing it, which might work for you, doesn't work as well for me for some reason, is to block out regular times every week when I'm going to be doing focused work. So that might be, I don't know, a 90-minute block 3 mornings a week, or maybe alternatively 1 hour every single work day or something like that, at 10 o'clock every day or something. Have a regular kind of recurring meeting with yourself, and then book those into your diary as a recurring meeting forever. So they're always blocked out in your diary, and then select, preferably in advance rather than at the beginning of that time block, what it is you're going to work on in each of those blocks. Now, for some people, this works really well because you get a regular rhythm to the week. I never actually succeeded in doing this one, so hats off to you if you manage to do it. Personally, I find a little bit more flexibility, but being really specifically there for a particular project that I'm working on works better for me. Try a few different things, see what works for you. And then I think the final thing I want to say is that this is about creating a new habit. This is about taking control of your time using either this diary blocking technique or any other technique that you've researched and that you want to be trying. Whatever it is you're doing, you have to understand it's not going to work for you the same as it works for everybody else. You have to explore and experiment and figure out what's going to be best for you. And one of the most important things to do is to talk to those people around you. So that might be your boss, it might be your peers, people in your team who work with you. Tell them why you're doing it. Tell them what you're trying to do, so you're kind of saying this is what I'm trying to achieve. Maybe encourage them to join you so that you're all working on focused things at the same time, your own things independently, but at the same time. Try and keep each other accountable and report back on how things went. Did you manage to focus for that 90-minute block? Did you find it hard? Did you find it easy? Did you use a technique at the beginning to try and help you focus more? And how effective was that technique that you tried? And then make sure that you're trying out different things over maybe a fortnight, a month. But then when you find out what works for you, create a system so that it is a regular habit that you're getting into so that you are in control of your time. So that's it for this week. I'm going to put some links in the episode notes to last week's episode around your inbox is not your job, in case the thing that's holding you back is finding the time to do this because your inbox is where you're spending most of your time. And then next week, we're going to be talking about some online efficiency tools that you can be experimenting with to get you even more time back to be focusing on these strategic projects. I love to hear your feedback. Let me know if anything this week has resonated or if anything that you've tried really hasn't quite landed with you and you're going to be trying something different, exploring and letting me know what is working for you instead. I love to hear your feedback. That's it for this time. I'll talk to you again next week. Bye then. Thanks for listening to the Independent School Podcast, the podcast that helps senior leaders in private schools to think and act more strategically, both because they want to secure the future of their school and because they want to help build a more equal and just world. You can listen in everywhere that podcasts are available. And if you want to catch up on previous episodes or follow any of the links that I've mentioned today, just head over to www.consultjuliet.co.uk/podcast.